3 weeks, I think, since I've been here. But we're here to talk about Confluence, the ACP-220, or Confluence Cloud Admin Exam. Welcome back. It's been a good 2 weeks. I took some time off and went out to Team 25 Europe, which I'll talk about a little bit here, but I have an entire session set up on Friday to go over it. So I'll be talking a lot about what I learned there and what the experience was like on Friday afternoon. Anyway, curious how all of you have been. I'll just drop a quick poll to get us lined up. Ooh, interesting. I have some new questions here. I don't want to do a Q&A. I want to do a poll. Hey, Christina, how are you? Rohit, welcome. Thank you, my friend. It's good to see you again. All right, and hope you all can hear me. If you can give me a little thumbs up. Habana, welcome. Good to see you. I'll give folks a couple minutes to trickle on in before we get started with our content. Ooh, an error has occurred. All right, let's see. I think I got everything I need. Christina, I definitely hope to see you again as well. I will be down in Long Beach. I was going to say Los Angeles, which would be wrong. Long Beach this Thursday for the Atlassian Builders Summit, which I'm looking forward to with some friends. I'll only be there Thursday morning. I've been away from home quite a bit, so I'm going to stop by that event just to give a talk on Agile, specifically talking about, excuse me, how lessons learned are important and how Atlassian tools can help us more easily capture those. Dom, welcome. All right, and it looks like you all can see and hear me. So we're going to get started. We're going to be talking again about some permissions, mainly creating spaces. Quick reminder, I am Rob. If y'all haven't been in one of these with me before, my career has been in information technology, and I'm mainly concerned about how people use systems that we're expected to use but are never trained in. Confluence is a great example. I've never had formal training at a job, but I've set up formal training to help other people because folks would join the HR team I'm on and be expected to use Confluence to support a team and never know how to use it. So all of these sessions, everything I do on this channel, all of the recorded trainings I have are around empowering folks to do their job and by reducing that frustration. Now, I had a great time at Team Europe. I mentioned that. Join me on Friday at 6:30 a.m. No, I think it's 9 a.m. Pacific. I'm doing a little bit later so I can sleep in, where I talk about Team, what we learned there, and what the experience was like. And I got to meet a dozen or so of you all who have learned with me, which has been amazing, and that was by far the best spot. But I'll talk more about what Team Europe was like and what we might expect in May, which will be the next one in Anaheim. As a reminder, it's been a couple weeks, so interaction, please use that chat. Frank, good morning, my friend. Good to see you. Use that to drop in questions. I've put in polls, for example, how have your past 2 weeks been, where I'll be asking about just how things are going. I'll be asking questions around your knowledge of Confluence app administration and those kind of things. Easiest way to support the channel is just like the stream, so hit the thumbs up. You will also notice in the bottom right that there is a QR code to Service Rocket. I actually do contract work with them, and they have allowed me to become a full-time creator. So I do work with them that helps pay the bills, which frees up my time to then go do more stuff like this. So they have a program called the Crew Member Program, where you can apply and just join their list of consultants. I believe you need to be ACP certified in some flavor, but definitely worth checking out if you're looking for work in the Atlassian ecosystem. And again, they have allowed me to step away from the 9-to-5 job and do more work with Atlassian stuff, which has been great. But otherwise, please like the stream and use the chat. Rohit's got a question about the Atlassian Builder Summit. I don't know offhand, my friend. I think they're recording a lot of it, but I'll see what I can find out for you. A quick review from 2 weeks ago. So just as a reminder of where we were, we talked about analytics and the audit log. And these are, particularly the audit log, are things that only the app admin can even see, let alone cares about. But they're very important because they allow us to determine what's going on in the instance and keep track of how things are going. And now, as the app admin, as the Confluence admin, we have app-wide scope. So unlike space admins, our analytics cover everything in the instance, which is great. And we also get access to search terms. This, for me, is the most useful part of analytics because I can see what people are looking for and see if they found a piece of content that makes sense for them. So this tells me, is my content set up for success? Am I using the right terms and things on all the pages? So I can review that and figure out, do I have to go tweak things or what are people looking for that maybe we have to go build out? And space admins can't see that. The audit log also logs a lot of activity across the instance. Things like what are the admins doing, what's maybe failing, what should I look into? But it's only retained for a year in Confluence. Now there's an asterisk here because we can export the audit log to third-party tools. So it is possible to stream or pipe out the audit log into something like a Datadog or a database to analyze later. But within Confluence itself, we have that audit log for up to 1 year. And this is important because we might have to work with compliance or security teams to figure out what's going on, or even figure out what the other admins we work with have been up to. I've gone into the audit log just to kind of remember, what did I do a month ago, or why was it, who made this particular change? So that is a quick review about analytics. And that prior session was recorded, so please check that out if you need to. But today we're going to talk more about access and permissions. And this will relate to space settings, the ability to make spaces, and things along that line. So this is a topic that I tend to use a little bit more frequently than I might some of these other things. Going in and making sure space permissions are set up, and that the things like default permissions that are set up in a space or the ability to copy permissions between spaces is set up properly. This impacts space admins, which is why we'll see it more frequently than things like the audit log, because every space admin has the ability to manage their own space permissions. There is also one caveat we need to be aware of. They are working on rolling out something called role-based access controls. And I'll get rid of this poll and I'll pop up a new one very quickly that we might need to be aware of. And this will just be a 4-point scale. So a 1, not at all, and a 4 is very familiar. The other term you'll see is RBAC, Role-Based Access Control. So if you see that term pop up, that's what that refers to, and I'll talk about that as we move along. I'm going to drop a link in our chat. This goes to the Atlassian Learning for the Cloud Confluence Admin for Cloud. And we're just going to go down to our Start Prepping for Free and jump right in to Manage Confluence Spaces. And I'm still getting used to this new experience. All right. Now, we've spoken about this before, but the ability to create Confluence spaces is permissions gated. Now, what that means is not everyone will be able to make a space, and this is a good thing. We want to avoid situations where anyone in the company can just go make a space, because what we'll end up with are 27 different versions of customer support, because people go in and think they're helping, and they will keep making duplicates. And we see this behavior in many aspects of systems. When people get access, it can be very good, and making things open can be very positive. However, we'll also end up in scenarios where we get duplicative or triplicate or even more copies of things that we don't necessarily want or need. That said, once you have this permission, it's very easy. There's just under the Create button, and I'll do this in just a minute, we can go in and make a space. And Confluence is then going to prompt us for some information. Things like the name of the space, the icon, and then the purpose of the space. The purpose of the space for me is just, I don't know how useful it is, honestly. It's in there. It will give you kind of a templated space with some basic stuff, and it'll set up some of the features for us. So it's just doing the space settings. It doesn't change. It doesn't do anything we can't change later, and it's not like it gives us any special abilities we can't do on our own. It's just intended as a starting point. So if you're unfamiliar with the different ways they're set up, this can be a little bit more impactful. But in my experience, I tend to just kind of pick one. Usually I just go custom. But for the purposes of permissions, we're really interested in this last dropdown, which is going to be what permission should the space have. Now there are default permissions, and these are set up by space admins. So I'll show you what this looks like, but this will be just the standard permission settings. This will be things like potentially allowing org admins access or allowing all users view-only access. It depends on what we choose to set up, and those are two common examples, giving org admins the ability to see things or every instance user the ability to access them. But we do have different options. We can copy them from a different space or even prevent anyone from seeing it except us. So when we make a space, I'll talk through each of these and why we might choose one of them. But again, the default will just be the default. And especially in environments where you have less or a smaller group of people making spaces, this has a little bit less of an impact. Because if there's only 5 or 6 of you, you all kind of know what they are, and you can use the default or tweak it as you go. If your environment is more open, you have more people making spaces, this might be something to keep a closer eye on if people accidentally choose to not share the space or not open it to other people. It'll be hard for others to gain access to the space. So just a heads up, this permissions can impact things, but in more tightly controlled organizations, less of an impact. The space key is important. The space key is a designation for the space, and it will default to the first letters of the space. So human resources would be HR. There's some nuance to the space key we need to understand as admins. They can't be reused. So in this example, HR1 is unique. Only this space can use it. We can change a space's key. However, we cannot reuse keys that have already been used unless the space is purged. So we have to delete and purge the space entirely to reuse HR1 in this case. In bigger organizations, this can become a little bit more of a problem. You'll end up with space keys that are similar or identical. Excuse me. But in smaller instances, under a few thousand, let's say, spaces, it's unlikely you'll run into problems with this. Just be aware you cannot reuse space keys unless you delete the space entirely. Talking about the space key, other things, it's got to be alphanumeric. So the characters A through Z and number 0 to 9. And it can be up to 255 characters long. So the length of the original tweets from Twitter, if anyone remembers those days. I typically make my space keys only a few letters long to make them easier to understand, or I make them very descriptive. HR, for example, is a great example, human resources, or ENG for engineering. If it's a personal space, it might be like the person's name. But we want to make sure that the space keys make sense to people, so when they see them, they know exactly what the space is for. So we're going to pop on over into my demo box, and let's see if my Zoom works. I had some technical issues. Up under Create, I have this space option. And again, most people, most of the time, may not have this permission. This particular permission, if I pop over into my admin settings, lives under, that's off slightly, global permissions. And it's just create a space. Now, these global permissions are group-based, so I have to be in a group that has this this checkbox for create a space. If I'm not in one of these groups, I cannot make a space. So typically organizations might allow everyone a personal space, but they won't allow create a space. So just be aware if you go in and try and do this and you don't see the space, that's why. But then I get this menu that's going to walk me through the space creation process. So I can give this a name. I might call this ACP-220. The icon, I always go back and forth. It feels silly to pick an icon. This is important for end users, though, because they'll see it next to the space name. You can't click See More, and you can't upload your own. Many organizations have custom iconography or custom icons. It can be very beneficial to use those. Again, the look and feel is an important aspect of being an admin that many times I forget. But we want to make sure that the look and feel of our systems is consistent with what our people expect. If it's not consistent, it can be jarring, it can pull people out of it, it can confuse them. So when you can, take the few minutes to find the right icons. I'll pick Is that a puffin? What is that? And then selecting the purpose. On the right, you'll see the kind of preview changing. Again, the purpose doesn't do much except preset some settings. I tend just to pick custom. You will get some out-of-the-box content created, which is just annoying. I usually just go delete it immediately. And then we get our default, or our permissions options. The default is whatever we've set up as a space admin. I'll pop over to that in just a moment. We can also copy permissions from another space, though. And this can be very beneficial if I have, say, multiple projects that are running that have the same project team or the same setup. Or if I have a team that needs to make a personal space instead of a public one, it makes my life a little bit easier. I can make it restricted, and this will just ensure only I have access until I decide to open it up. So if I'm working with a legal team, a compliance team, something like that, I might choose to make this a restricted space until I know exactly who should be in it. And last, I have the ability for that space key. Now in this case, because the name is so small, it just defaulted into the name of the space. But if I make it longer, like study session ACP-220, you'll notice the space key just grabbed the first letters of each word. I can change this and make it whatever I want, though. So I have the option right now to modify and tweak it. Once I hit next, I'll see all the features I could turn on. And again, because I chose manual, it just basically turned all of them on. And we can always change this later. So I can go into the space and turn these on or off as I go. So not too big of a deal if I hit create space and I realize, oops, I forgot something. Once I hit go, that's just going to load up this particular space, and I'm good to go, and that's it. And now I have a new space. So that's the creation process. Very straightforward. I typically agonize over like the space name and the space key too much, as well as depending on my setup needs, I'll take a minute to think through what are the permissions. And I'm going to take a very short coffee break and share a link to my friends over at Service Rocket. That link will take you to the crew member program, more information about it. Definitely worth checking out again if you're looking for work in the Atlassian ecosystem. Loads more detail there about what they're about. All right, I am now in the app admin, and what I'm going to go through is the default settings under space permissions. So when we made that space, which is not there, it's in here, we chose the default permissions. So in space permissions under the second tab, I have the list of the permissions. And this is what new spaces will have by default. So it's saying org admins have custom access. Now this might look different. Now, and this is because these role-based access controls, or RBAC, are now in beta. I don't know when they'll be live permanently, but we'll see we now have a role. And role-based access controls are just a general security concept, where instead of saying for each individual or each group, I check a lot of different boxes, which is how we're used to seeing things, I can define this, what someone gets by the name of a role: admin, manager, viewer, editor. And these roles are a collection of permissions that are standard. So I know that if I pick admin, that's consistent across everyone. Now, for the purpose of the ACP-220, role-based access controls don't exist, because when the exam was written, this feature wasn't live yet. So I'm pointing this out because we will run into this in reality. When you're using Confluence in your organization, you'll see these options, and we'll need to understand. If I click on the little I and click Manage Access, I will see what this role can do. And these are all the permissions available to roles. So everything that's checked off, the admin role has access to. And this to me is a very good step forward. It means I don't have to go check 15 boxes when I want to go give someone access to a space. I can just come in and give them the admin role. Frank, I don't know what a project is in Jira, and I'm being a bit annoying. Projects have been relabeled spaces in Jira. Welcome to the new world. But yes, they are very similar, if not identical, to space roles in Jira. And again, you won't see this on the exam when you sit the ACP-220 until they update the exam, but you might see this when you use Confluence in your organization or in a demo box, that kind of thing. There are also some new permissions if you come in here. You can now manage user access. This is a great one, so you can have someone who doesn't get admin access entirely to the space, but they can manage access. And we have the ability to split out create and edit content. Before, the create permission was the same as the edit permission. If you can make content, you can edit it, and vice versa. Now it's two separate things. Frank, no worries, my friend. It's going to take me a long time to fix my habit of calling them Jira projects. And I'll probably actually have to get a little counter on the screen every time I say that word that is no longer the appropriate name for the thing. But keep in mind that these role-based access controls are going to be a new thing that will eventually appear on the exam, but are maybe live in reality. So that's what the RBAC is and what we'll see coming out. I guess another poll. Just curious if folks will be taking the 220, that exam, to earn the certificate or credential or whatever it's called. I took it about a month ago, but curious if folks here are intending on taking it. So these defaults are applied every time we choose that default. And that's, again, the space creation process. As the app admin, I can always come in here and edit the defaults. I just need to go to space permissions, defaults, and then add groups. And then I can choose what their default are. In the old version, I would be able to check all the boxes to give people access. And I can always click, oh, that's what I'm looking for. And I'll drop a link to this, which details more about Confluence roles. Confluence. And I think I misspelled Confluence. My apologies. All right, space features. We briefly saw these when we got into the space. Now, these are available to space admins under space settings. And then I'm looking for the general features. Each of these sliders is a different feature within just this space. Now, when we made the space, some of these were automatically turned on or turned off. I can always come in, though, and turn them on or off as an admin. There are some that I never use. For example, the teams I work with have never used calendars. That's not good or bad. That's just saying we've never used calendars. But here I can turn these on or off. The biggest impact this has is to the end user. So if I turn off blogs and I go back to my space, I won't have blogs at the bottom. I gotta fix the zoom, I'm sorry. I won't have blogs in the bottom left here. So when we go in and do this, it's really tailoring the space to fit the user's needs. So when I build the space, I'm talking to folks. I'm saying, hey, Frank, does your team need the Confluence calendar? And if he says no, I just turn it off. And this frees up some visual space to make it easier to use. It also reduces the risk someone will use a feature that our team doesn't use. The first company I worked at that had Confluence had a Q&A feature turned on, but no one monitored it. So people were going in and asking questions about things like payroll or policies or how do I put in vacation, and no one was helping them. So these people were asking questions in a spot that no one was answering them. So always take a minute just to flip these off or on if you don't need them. And also keep in mind you can turn off content types. So it's possible someone turns off, say, databases. You might get complaints that people can't make a database or a whiteboard. This is where you turn that back on. So just under the features menu in space settings. And everything that is set up when you make a space, the space admin can go in and modify. So we just have spaces here, space access, or it's under users now, I think, is where I would control these new roles, or where I would go change the permissions. And actually, I will see if I can very quickly go find. I'm going to go into a different demo box and just show what the current or old permissions look like, just so we can see it very quickly under space settings. Oh, I don't have premium. We can see in the background here, this is what the old version of space settings used to look like. All these checkboxes. This is what we'll see on the exam, all this different setup. So we won't have roles on the exam, but we would have all these little checkboxes where we have to tick off, yes, you can add pages, yes, you can add blogs or comments or attachments. So this would be the big difference you might see between your live space and the exam or other instances you might work in. All right. What questions do y'all have? All right. It looks like most of us are going to take the 220 but haven't signed up yet. If you haven't signed up yet, I do have an entire course that covers this exam, and I'll drop a quick link. The course does include an exam voucher. So if you're looking to take the course, this is maybe the best way because it'll save you a bit of coin, a bit of money. There is also a version of this course that doesn't include the voucher, which is cheaper. But if you haven't signed up yet, that might be a good way to take it, just because it's including the exam voucher for you to save some money. All right, managing Confluence users and permissions. There are 3 levels of permissions when we think of Confluence, and I'm zoomed in way too much. I apologize. The term, what's a good way to say this? Permissions refer to the ability to access a space or things at the space or instance level. Restrictions refer to things at the content level. So this can be a bit confusing. I'm calling out this difference because if I go and search for page restriction, that will get me information about just individual content. And if I search for permissions in community or online, I'll find information around the space or the instance. So just keep in mind that these are 2 different terms. Most people, when they talk about them, though, just refer to them as permissions or access. Global permissions are those things that control the ability to access the instance or create spaces. Typically, it's 2 different things. Global permissions are the ability to make a space or the ability to have a personal space. So if I go back into my demo box, into my app admin panel, and under global permissions, my global permissions are personal space and create a space. Now that's for users. I also have guests, public links, anonymous access, etc. But mainly global permissions is going to refer to my ability to have a personal space and the ability to create a space. So usually when we talk about global permissions, it's one of those 2 things. Space permissions refer to the ability to interact in a particular space. Yeah, and that's what most of us are used to, especially as a space admin. The ability to make content or edit content, the ability to view a space, the ability... adding restrictions to a piece of content is its own permission. So if I can't add restrictions, I need a space permission. And this is what most of the time we're going to be, I'll say, fighting with or struggling with as admins to make sure people have the appropriate setup. And that's ticking all the right boxes. One thing to keep in mind is these permissions in Confluence are additive. So if I'm in 2 different groups that have access to a space, and one group gives me edit and one does not, I will get edit access. So it's going to just combine all of my permissions in a space and give me that. I'm calling this out because some systems are restrictive. It's the least permissions given. That's not the case with Confluence. So if I get a permission by any means, by any group, I just get that permission. It's not going to be removed if I'm added to a group that doesn't have it. And last, I've got the page restriction. And the page restriction or content restriction is someone being able to see or interact with a particular piece of content. This is where I spend a lot of time as an admin because it's very frustrating. Frank can access a particular page, but Rohit cannot. I have to go in and figure out why. What's going on with that restriction that's allowing Frank to see it, but not Rohit. Now, in the context of the exam, they talk about roles. These are different from the role-based access controls that you might see in Confluence today. They're talking about users, and these are people who have access. Typically, we're talking about licensed users, and this is someone who has paid access. So our organizations pay for licenses to get into Confluence. It's going to be so many dollars per license. There are also and can be unlicensed users, which would be someone who doesn't have a paid license. The biggest example would be guests who can get in or through other ways, for example, Jira Service Management. Most of the time we're talking about someone with a license, though. Groups. I don't know why this is under roles, honestly. A group is just a collection of users. We cannot make groups as a Confluence admin. We have to work with our org admin to make them. This makes it very frustrating because we might need a particular group for a project or for a certain thing, and we can't go make it. We might have to put in an IT ticket or talk to our information technology team on how do we set that up. So just keep in mind, if you need a group or have questions about them, you'll have to talk to an org admin. And the name of the group is pretty much the only way to know what it's for. So hopefully they're named well. That said, the group name doesn't have to match what the group is for. So you might have a group called Confluence Users that does not contain Confluence users. So when in doubt, talk to your org admin and just ask them to help you understand what's going on. Guests are, I don't know if they're relatively new, but they are free users. You get 5 guests per paid user. Now, guest access is intended to be limited. It can't do something like @mention people. It can't be, guests cannot be the space admin. It's intended for a contractor or a consultant, someone like that, to come in and help out, to work in the space. And typically it's in one, you give a guest access to a single space at a time. They're coming in here to work on a single thing. Keep in mind that the total number of users cannot exceed your user limit. So depending on your instance, this could be more or less of a challenge. I have not noticed anyone running into problems with guests and running into this limit. Because the limit can be up to 150,000. It's what your company pays for, though. So keep in mind if you don't want to exceed this, and you might have to go in and remove guests or work with your org admin to balance this. Also, guests can be disabled at the org level, so you might not even have access to this feature. Excuse me. And last, we have anonymous users. This is the ability to just open up the site to anyone on the internet. This can be good. Come back. But keep in mind that it can show up in Google search results and that anyone can see it and get in. So I am overly paranoid about turning on anonymous access. This is something we can restrict at the app level just to keep folks from getting in who shouldn't. There are legitimate uses, though. For example, even the Confluence role-based access control information I shared is its own. Here, I'll grab this link real quick. Even this documentation is an anonymous link. So I can see this is opening up into a Confluence page, but I'm not logged in. So this is an example of anonymous access. I can view this even though I don't have a license to this instance. As I mentioned, licensed users can have the create space and personal space permissions. Typically, groups I work in will give everyone a personal space just so they have that space to go play in, but they probably do not give them the create space permission. Again, just to make sure we don't end up with too many and we don't flood the system with similar sounding spaces. There is the space admin permission. Any space admin can make other space admins. This is more of a call out in how we manage Confluence. I've had individuals accidentally do this where they didn't realize making Frank a space admin would mean he can go in and change permissions. So just be aware that your space admins have the ability to make other space admins, and this can cause challenges, if only because they'll be giving people this access and they may not necessarily mean to do that. All right, quick coffee break for Rob, quick question check. Pretty quiet in the chat, so I assume y'all are, I'll use the term hunky-dory. Y'all are all following along fairly well. But please drop questions in there, comments, let me know if you need me to back up or dig more into things. And another quick shout out to my friends at Service Rocket. The link is there in the chat, also the QR code. And I'll drop this message right there for y'all. And that crew member program is a way to get contract work in the Atlassian ecosystem. Been very helpful for me personally in allowing me to have some flexibility. All right, inspecting permissions. This is a very, very beneficial and useful tool that allows us as admins to see who can view or access something. What I'll do is just go in and show you. I need some content. Oh, I got you, Sarah. Glad you're there, and thank you for responding. I know that there's about 20 folks in here, so I hope you're all finding this useful. I'm just going to pick on this page, and if I go open to share, oh man, I always forget where this lives. More actions now, perfect. No? Oh, let me zoom out here. There it is. Sarah, thank you for hitting like on the stream. If I go into the share menu and I click on these top three, the more actions, I'll have inspect permissions. This is something I use very regularly as people complain about why can't I see or not see something. And this is from each individual piece of content. So I can tell from this page, status info, I'll pick on my friend Andrew. Can he view it? He can. So it's going to tell me right at the top, but then it's going to break down each layer of access. It's going to tell me he's allowed into Confluence because he has access to it. And I can even just click contact Confluence admins to send them an email. Next, it's going to tell me, yes, he can see the space and then the piece of content. So this helps me untangle what's going on at any level of access. What I'm going to do is restrict this particular piece of content just so only I can see it, to show you what it looks like if someone doesn't have access. Excuse me. So I'm going to go back into inspect permissions. Whoops. Come back, Andrew. And now it's saying Andrew cannot see this because he's being denied at a particular level. And if I open up denied, he doesn't have permission to view. He can see the space and the instance, but he can't view this thing. So again, I wouldn't say I use this daily, but this is something I go into a lot just because it is so powerful and it shows me exactly what he cannot view. I can then contact the owner of that content or just click on view to open it up. And this will show me the exact page he can't see. So I could then take action to go in and change the permissions or update the restrictions right from here. So this is the inspect permissions tool. And again, it's found under share, more actions, inspect permissions. But one of the more useful things that I go in and I go look at. There are some things we need to understand about it. You can be allowed permission to something, and I'll zoom in so we can see this more. We can be denied permission, like we saw with Andrew, he's restricted. There can be inherited permissions. And this might be a restriction from a parent that's being inherited down. So it gives us more than just they can or cannot see it. It will also tell us they can or cannot see it because of this parent, or if it's irrelevant. There might be a restriction, but it doesn't impact Andrew's access. So again, the tool is very good about showing me what's going on and the exact level of access that Andrew would need to see the thing, whatever that is. All right, managing space permissions. Again, with the checkboxes, the current way of it working, we can, and even with the role-based stuff, the new stuff that isn't quite live for everyone, we can add individual users, or we can add entire groups of individuals. So as we're going, we can consider, do we just need Sarah to have this access, or do we need an entire group called Confluence users? Excuse me, that coffee cup was way too full. Regardless, we as space admins can go and control this. So the ability, giving someone space admin in the current state means they can go in and modify permissions. With the role-based stuff, the new stuff, that's a separate permission though. So if you're in the new settings, the new access controls, you can break off and you can give Sarah the ability to control access, but not other things. We can control fairly granularly these checkboxes though. And I'll see if I can pull this open. Perfect. So in this example, chat notifications can view. And the important thing about the view permission is if you don't have this, you cannot see the space. So if you have any permission in the space, you at least have view access. I cannot give you the ability to make content without being able to view the space, which, saying it out loud, kind of makes sense. But it's definitely something we just need to be aware of as admins. And the easiest way to get rid of someone is just remove view access and save. And that just blocks them entirely. So when in doubt, just untick view, and then they can't get in, they can't see anything. And that's an easy way to protect the space. There are some permissions I tend to always give folks. The ability to delete their own content, for example, I tend to give that to human users. The ability to add content, I typically give. It depends on what the space needs to do, though. And this is where we as admins need to understand more than just what the buttons do. We need to understand why people need the space, what they intend to do with it, because that will then help us set it up in a way that supports their work and in a way that does it securely, for example. In some spaces, I'll pick on human resources teams or maybe finance or legal, you don't want just anyone making content. Maybe the whole company can view it, that's okay, but only certain groups or certain individuals should be able to add, edit, or remove content from it. So I typically, when I'm setting up a new space, especially if it's a larger one, I'll just go down the permissions and I'll talk to whoever will own the space or the team and say, all right, Frank, do we need the ability to add blogs to this? Nope. Okay, we'll just turn that off. Should people be able to comment? Yes, no, no. Okay, we'll turn off comments. And I'll just go down the line to make sure it's set up properly. Most of the time, honestly, though, I'm just kind of setting things up because I understand generally what people need. But in instances of a more sensitive space, I'll take much more time to set these up. Now, the next thing we need to consider is this space level access or restrictions. And this is where within the space, we might need to keep it even more locked down. Most commonly, I see editing restrictions. So maybe everyone in the space can view this page, but only a subset, a small group can edit it. Easy example, again, human resources, I pick on them a lot. Everyone can view a policy, but only certain people can edit the policy. Most of the time, though, I'm not putting restrictions on things by default. I'm waiting to be told or waiting to find a situation where I have to restrict it. And this is because I like to keep Confluence open. I like to allow people the ability to go in and edit and create and modify and comment and do all this other good stuff because that's the purpose of Confluence. It's a collaboration platform. It's intended to be open, and these restrictions can get in the way of that. And as you may have run into, restrictions can also be insanely frustrating. And I'll drop a quick poll. What's a good way to phrase this? How frustrating are restrictions? And I'll just do a quick 4-point scale here. Not very to very. Especially before I understood how they worked and found that inspect permissions tool, I was definitely a 3 or a 4. All right, a call out in here that space permissions work differently than page permissions or restrictions. One call out in here is restrictions can be applied to published or draft pages and blog posts. So when I see the term page restriction in documentation, I replace that with content restriction. And that's because every type of content currently can be restricted. Here is a smart link. Oh, I lied. We can't set them for smart links. Here is a whiteboard. There we go. Better example. I can set restrictions on my whiteboard. I can set them on databases, pages, live docs, and what's the last one? Blog posts. Apparently not smart links, though, which is interesting. I wonder if they'll change that. Learning something new every day. Another fun call out, you cannot remove yourself from the restriction list. So you can't put a restriction and then remove your own access to that piece of content. This will be important if there's ever an instance of, I'll pick on legal in this case. They have a piece of content that only they should see. You can't set it up so you can't see it. Oh, wow. And so far, out of 2 votes, half of us find restrictions a little bit frustrating and a little bit more. An easy 50-50 split. Finding page restrictions, they moved this up to the share button. So if you've used Confluence in the past, it used to be its own little lock icon. It now lives up under share. So they just moved it slightly, and it exists at the bottom here. You have to change it to restricted. And now I can add people to this list and indicate what they can, what they are able to do. The gray lock, the color of the lock also tells you the restriction. If it's gray, there might be view restrictions. If it's red, there are edit restrictions. So one of the first things I look at when I open a page is what color is that lock. And if it's red, that instantly tells me, oh, this means that there's editing restrictions on it, and it helps me understand a little bit more about its setup. Now, space admins can get a list of everything that has been restricted. This is a great tool, especially in bigger spaces, and I'll pop back into Confluence and go into my space settings. And under content, I've got restricted. This will just be a list of everything that's restricted that I can then go in and see the type of restriction. And I can click on the lock and get more information about it. Now, this isn't telling me, this particular feature doesn't let me then go edit that. It's just page information, but it's telling me what's set up on the page, who can see or edit it, and what's going on. This is really useful to help kind of untangle what might be going on. In bigger spaces, this can be very large, so a command find can work. There's no easy way to search through it that I found, but this gives me a list of everything in this space. It can be frustrating because I can't easily edit from here. I have to go open up the page itself or the piece of content, click on share, and then go change it. Now again, these are layers. So the higher layer is the space permission, and the page restriction lives within that. So keep in mind that the space permissions kind of override or supersede everything. If I don't have view access to a space, I cannot view the content within it, period, full stop. So when I think of the granularity or specificity of the access, I always think, okay, can someone see the space for who needs to interact with the space? And then from there, I get more specific or finely tune it based on things. Excuse me. And restrictions cannot override the space. In the same way, if I don't have a license to Confluence, I can't see content. If I don't have view access to the space, I cannot see the content in there. Now, page restrictions are another topic that drives me crazy. And this relates to the parent-child relationship of content. So if I can view the space, there might be restrictions on a page. That page, if it's a child of another page or nested under it, can inherit permissions from the parent. View restrictions are always inherited down. So if I go back into Confluence, my Zoom, that's going to drive me crazy. If there's a view restriction on company pages and only I can see it in a small group, any child under it has the same view restriction. So if only Sarah and I can see this page, only Sarah and I can see the children. So that makes it kind of easy. And this can drive some users nuts because they'll accidentally drag and drop something or make a new child and then no one can see it. So keep in mind, view is inherited down. Edit restrictions are not inherited. This is something I didn't know, but if only Sarah and I can edit company policies, that does not mean only Sarah and I can edit this page or that page or that page. So it is possible to set things up so everyone can view, but only I can edit company policies. And then everyone can view and only Sarah can edit one of the children. And then Frank can edit a different one and Sally edits a different one. So edit permissions are unique to the content. They don't inherit to children and they aren't pulled down from the parent. So just a big difference. View permissions are always inherited. Please keep that in mind. If the parent has a view restriction, the children will have an identical view restriction. Please let me know if that's confusing. That one took me way too long in my head to untangle and understand. Now next we have anonymous access. Anonymous access lets anyone on the internet view the space or view the page. Now it's controlled at 3 levels. At the site level, as the app admin, I can go in and turn this off. So I might go into my security, my global permissions, anonymous access, and I can see that this is turned off for my space, or for my instance, I'm sorry. So there's no green checkbox. This means regardless of everything else, it cannot be turned on at the space level. If that is turned on though, let me see if I can do this very quickly. And now I go down into a space. Under space access, I have anonymous access. Now, as the space admin, I can turn this on. And it's going to remind me, hey, special view access. And we can even manage permissions for anonymous users. So I can give them some limited access to the space. It is possible to give them view or edit access, depending on the setup. But it has to be turned on at the app, then at the space, and then on each individual piece of content. So if I go to share this page, this could now be shared just publicly, anonymously. So I can turn this link on, and this now allows anyone on the internet to access it via link. I'm overly paranoid about turning this on, and I'm going to go turn this off right now in this instance, just to make sure I don't make any silly mistakes. But keep in mind, if this is turned on, anyone on the internet can get access. And so we want to be very careful. Many organizations just have it turned off globally. They make sure no one can do it. And then if there are legitimate use cases, maybe some picking on human resources, they want to share employee information or employee branding, or your product team has a roadmap, or your support team has support documentation, these kind of things, you can share it that way. So that is one way to share this. And you can give them very limited abilities to interact with the space. For example, view and comment, add information. That is something that I, as an admin, also regularly audit. I'll go in and see, okay, what has been turned on. And I can see it under public links. I can see who's allowing it. and then how much is it being accessed. So we do get some ability to manage and control this outside of just turning it on or off entirely. All right. All right, folks. That was space permissions and creating spaces. Definitely something worth digging into. This is much more of the admin-y stuff, managing access and permissions. So something that I, as an admin, spend a lot of time thinking about and considering. How do I set it up for success? How do I educate my team to make sure they know what's going on? Our next session will be next Friday. I need more coffee. Our next session will be next Monday, Monday, the 27th, at 6:30. So same time, same place, and we're back onto a Monday cadence. I think until the end, there might be 1 week that's a little bit different. But going to drop one last poll. Just curious what you thought of the session. Between now and then, please study, check out some of those links, get hands-on when you can. That's the best way to learn. You can also check out my ACP-220 course, and again, this includes a voucher. So this is a little bit of a discount on the voucher itself and includes 5+ hours of content and a practice exam. And also check out my friends over at Service Rocket. And their crew member program has been very helpful for me. Oh, my chat finally decided to show up. Let me get that out of the way. There we go. Hit that link or that QR code. Just tell them Rob says hi. But they've been a great group to work with in helping me get more work in Atlassian, but also get away from the 9 to 5. Otherwise, we've got the Discord server up and running. I'll be more active in there. I've got some ideas on how to make it more useful. I'll drop a link to that. And I'll see y'all next Monday. Oop, I got 3 greats and 1 amazing. Whew, a little bit nervous. My email's also here. Feel free to shoot me an email if you need any help, have specific questions, that kind of thing. Or run into any challenges getting access to that course. I'll be happy to help you all out, especially if you have some kind of financial need or difficulty. Always looking for ways to help ensure folks can get what they need. Otherwise, folks, I'll leave the chat open for just a couple of minutes, but thank you all. I've missed this group, and be on the lookout for more. I've got a session this Friday on Team, and I'll have some more sessions spun up for next week on new and exciting topics. So thank you all. Have a great day wherever you are, and welcome Rohit as my newest channel member. I appreciate you, my friend. Amazing was under great. Sarah, I was just typing them kind of off the top of my head. Also a bit of a joke having amazing and great in there. So thank you for picking one or the other. Anyway, folks, thank you again. Have a great Monday, and I'll see y'all again soon.